Have you ever seen someone so obsessed with their tiny scrap of authority that they forget the law, basic decency, and even common sense, only to be publicly humiliated when the very system they tried to abuse crushes them instead? That's exactly what happened in a quiet Florida retirement community when an HOA decided to ban service dogs, targeting the wrong man, a retired Sheriff ASK9 detective who had dedicated decades of his life to protecting people and working alongside service animals. A man who knew the law better than the clipboard warriors running his neighborhood. What began as a petty power play over a dog spiraled into a dramatic courtroom showdown that ended with the HOA president, smug confidence collapsing in real time, a service dog proving its worth in front of a judge, and a viral clip that spread across the internet like wildfire, making millions cheer as justice was served in the most satisfying way possible. The Florida retirement community looked peaceful on the outside. Pastel-colored houses lined up neatly with trimmed lawns, golf carts humming along instead of cars, retirees gathering for morning walks, and poolside chatter. But behind the gates was a board of HOA members who ruled with iron fists disguised as clipboards. They lived for enforcing fines over garbage cans left out overnight, weeds an inch too tall, or Christmas lights left up past January. And their president was the queen of it all. She was a woman in her 60s, sharp-featured, lips always pursed like she had bitten into a lemon, with a permanent scowl etched onto her face and a binder of rules she carried everywhere like it was scripture. She believed her authority was absolute, and when she saw a German shepherd trotting beside a new resident, she didn't see a service dog. She saw defiance. The man walking that dog wasn't just any resident. He was a retired Sheriff EMS detective who had spent most of his career in the K-9 unit, working with service animals trained to save lives, detect danger, and serve alongside law enforcement. Years of grueling cases had left him with scars both visible and invisible, and his loyal German shepherd wasn't just a companion, but a necessity. The dog could detect oncoming health episodes, anchor him during panic attacks, and had been specifically trained to help him navigate daily life after years of service. To him, this animal wasn't a pet. It was medicine, therapy, and protection, wrapped into one four-legged partner. But the HOA president didn't care. She knocked on his door one hot afternoon, binder in hand, smugness in her eyes, and declared, "Pets are not allowed. You have 30 days to remove the animal or face fines." The detective, calm and collected, explained this was a pet, but a federally protected service dog under the Americans with Disabilities Act. He showed her the paperwork, tried to educate her, even pulled up the ADA guidelines on his phone. But she waved it off with a scoff, saying, "Rules are rules. We don't allow dogs here, and you're not special." That one sentence lit a fire inside him. He had faced criminals, liars, and manipulators in his career, but something about this woman's arrogance, her smug dismissal of federal law, and her attempt to bully him in his own home stung deeper than any insult. He could feel his chest tighten, his jaw clench, his dog resting a steadying head against his leg as if reminding him not to let anger take over. He tried diplomacy first, because that's what he had been trained to do. He sent the HOA official letters, attached legal documents proving his right, even suggested a workshop to educate the board on ADA compliance. Instead of listening, they doubled down. He received formal notices threatening hundreds of dollars in fines letters with bold red letters, warning of liens on his property, and even saw board members whispering to neighbors about how that man with the dog thinks he's above the rules. He began noticing cold stares from certain residents who feared speaking against the board, while others quietly offered support but admitted they were too scared of retaliation to say anything publicly. It wasn't just about a dog anymore. It was about intimidation, about an HOA that thought it could bend reality to its will. And that's when the detective decided enough was enough. He wasn't just a man with a dog. He was a man who had spent a lifetime standing up to bullies, who had testified in countless courtrooms, who knew exactly how the law worked. If the HOA wanted a battle, they had picked the wrong opponent. He filed a formal complaint with the state's housing authority and invoked his ADA rights. A hearing was scheduled, and the news sent shockwaves through the community. The HOA board puffed up their chests, acting like they had already won. They strutted around with binders stuffed full of highlighted rules, convinced that their "no pets" clause would carry the day. But when the detective walked into the courtroom, calm, composed, his German shepherd at his side, the atmosphere shifted immediately. He wasn't there to argue or beg. He was there to demonstrate truth. The judge began by asking both sides to present their cases. The HOA president went first, smugly reading from her binder, voice dripping with superiority as she explained how rules are rules and exceptions would lead to chaos. She waved papers, cited neighborhood bylaws, and acted like federal law was nothing compared to her sacred handbook. Then it was the detective's turn. He stood, straightened his jacket, and began calmly explaining the ADA protections, his medical need for the service dog, and the dog's specialized training. And then, almost as if scripted by fate, his stress level spiked from reliving years of trauma while speaking, and his dog, without command, leaned into him and nudged his leg, grounding him, alerting him before his body could betray him. The entire courtroom froze. It was a moment no binder, no smug smile, no self-important HOA speech could counter. It was living proof. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the HOA president, and asked her one sharp question. "Did you truly believe your neighborhood rules are above federal law?" Her face drained of color, papers trembling in her hands, her once confident voice reduced to a stutter. The ruling came down hard. The HOA was ordered to allow the service dog without restriction, fined for harassment, and required to undergo mandatory ADA compliance training. But that wasn't the end. A journalist covering local HOA disputes picked up the story, and footage of the dog's demonstration in court made its way online. Within days, the clip went viral, spreading across social media, disability advocacy groups, veteran communities, and beyond. Millions watched as a German shepherd calmly proved more in a single nudge than an entire HOA board could deny in hundreds of pages of rules. The internet lit up with outrage at the HOA and praise for the detective, hailing him as a hero not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been bullied by an overreaching HOA or petty authority figure. For the detective, the victory wasn't about likes or shares. It was about validation, about knowing that he had stood up not just for his own rights but for the principle that no one, no matter how self-important, gets to trample the law or someone's dignity. He went home that night, his dog lying peacefully at his feet, finally able to breathe without the weight of looming fines and harassment. The community began to change, too. Neighbors who had once stayed silent found courage, speaking up against the HOA's abusive practices, emboldened by the detective's stand. The HOA president, once the untouchable queen of fines and fear, was now a pariah, whispered about for her humiliation in court and mocked online for her arrogance. And while she tried to retreat back into her binder of rules, everyone knew her reign of terror was broken. The lesson was clear. Sometimes revenge doesn't come in the form of yelling, fighting, or stooping to the bully's level. Sometimes it comes in the form of calm, quiet justice, a courtroom victory, a viral moment where the truth is undeniable, and the world gets to watch arrogance crumble in real time. And in this case, it came with the soft nudge of a service dog reminding everyone that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in on four paws, steady, loyal, and unshakable. So if you've ever felt powerless against an HOA, a boss, or anyone who thought their clipboard or title gave them the right to crush you, remember this story. Remember that the law is bigger than their ego, that justice can be patient, and that the sweetest revenge is watching those who tried to strip you of dignity get stripped of their own power instead. And if you think this story is satisfying, imagine being in that courtroom, watching the smug smile vanish, hearing the gavel fall and knowing that this time the good guy won and the bully was exposed to the world.